and you can get things rolling if you would like. And
Great. I'm just going to start with Lauren put in the chat. If we see Lauren leave the screen, she's got some tree removal work happening at her house. So if she disappears, that's what's going on, and she'll be back. Great. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. And as usual, we'll start out with a round of introductions. I'll just call on people if you don't mind saying your name, whether you're a voting member, your affiliation, and pronouns if desired. I will start. I'm Lindsay White. I'm the chair. I'm a voting member representing the Missisquoi River Basin Association. My pronouns are she, her. Sarah.
I'm Sarah Downs. I am a voting member and I'm representing municipalities with the Enosburg Conservation Commission.
Dan.
I'm from Richford and I'm a voting member.
Nora.
I'm Nora Brown. I am the Eco AmeriCorps member at NRPC.
Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Weston. I am the district manager for the Franklin County NRCD. I'm a voting member. I use she, her pronouns.
Cliff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Jenkins, Water Quality Project Manager at NRPC.
Kent.
Hi, Ken Henderson, Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, voting member.
Ellen.
Hi, I'm Ellen. I am an alternate and I'm with the Missisquoi River Basin Association and I use she, her pronouns.
Tucker.
Tucker Malone. I'm an alternate. Lair couldn't be here today, so I guess that means I'll be voting today. And I'm with the Vermont Land Trust. Thanks a lot.
Beth.
Good morning. I'm Beth Torpy with Northeastern Vermont Development Association, she, her, and I have an insurance adjuster arriving probably around noon. So if I disappear, that's why, and I will have the volume on. So if I hear any voting going on, I will run back to vote.
Thanks, Beth. Josh.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Serpy, project manager with Friends of Northern Lake Champlain.
Heidi. Oh, you're muted, Heidi.
Sorry about that. I thought I already unmuted. I'm Heidi Bridge Valenta with the Village of Swanton as an NRPC rep.
Bridget.
Right when I took a bite of my fig Newton, Lindsay, thanks. Bridget Butler, Executive Director, Friends of Northern Lake Champlain. I use she, her pronouns.
Karen.
Karen Bates, DEC Watershed Planner for the Missisquoi.
The screen just says red start it looks like in the shed. Maybe you're both in the shed.
Oh, hi. This is James with Red Start and a partner on one of the projects today, not a voting member, he, him pronouns.
Great. Thanks, James. Dorothy.
I'm Dorothy. I work for the Franklin County NRCD, use she, her pronouns, and I'm an alternate, but I won't be voting today because Lauren's here.
Finley.
Hi, I'm with Red Start, doing design on one of the projects that are up, non-voting, he, him pronouns.
Great. Lauren. Wait, did I already get Lauren? No. I did get Lauren. Yeah. Right. Chris Rattler.
Hey, I'm Chris Rattler. I'm with the State Department of Environmental Conservation Watershed Planning Program. I am not a voting member.
And Dean.
Dean Pierce, staff, he, him.
Great. Just a quick overview of our meeting protocols. Please keep your screen on if possible. Stay engaged. Feel free to write in the chat. I will be monitoring it and we'll read aloud any comments that are relevant. I'm not going to read about the AI assistants. We do need to disclose conflict of interest. I will disclose that MRBA has a project on the proposal list, so I will That was my conflict of interest. I will be abstaining from voting on that one. Other conflicts?
Hi, Lauren Weston. The Franklin County NRCD has 3 projects before you today, and so I will be abstaining on all 3 of those.
Great. Next up is approval of minutes.
Hey, hold on
Oh,
1 second.
sorry, Tucker.
I guess I'm not sure if it's a conflict, but I should bring it up. I'm working with one of the landowners and have worked with Lauren to help kind of develop the project, but we're not submitting the project, so I'm unclear.
Yeah, Dean, I'm not sure if that
Yeah.
counts as a conflict or not. They're not going to make any money off of it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was just adjusting my screen. So who spoke and said that they've worked with landowner? The short of it is that and Chris Rottler can offer his view if he feels if it's different from mine, but the rule requires the proponent of the project to recuse themselves. I tell people that if someone is a voting member and technically they're not required, but they're still uncomfortable, then they can act on their conscience and also choose to recuse themselves. But I don't believe that under the rule they would be required to.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks for that clarity. Now moving on to the approval of, oh, and Chris approves, thumbs up in the chat. Approval of the minutes. Thanks, Nora and Dean, for putting this together and sending those out. Hopefully folks had a chance to review. Please note any corrections. And if there are no corrections to note, then we'll take a motion to approve them. Oh, Kent, I see a hand up. Is that a
And
motion
it's
to approve?
just to make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Kent. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Sarah. So we have a motion from Kent, a second from Sarah. All voting members, please indicate if you are in favor. You can do so by either raising a virtual hand, a physical hand. I will call out names. Now I have Kent, Lindsay, Sarah, Dan. There's a lot of us here. I have to scroll down. I saw Heidi, Lauren. I think that's everybody. Great. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Back to that.
So was the
I skipped over the approving the agenda. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong part of my packet. So we need to approve the agenda. So we'll seek a motion or any comments on the agenda that was also sent out.
This is Lauren. I move to approve the agenda.
Okay, I've got a motion from Lauren. Is that a second, Sarah?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, a second from Sarah. All in favor of approving the agenda as sent out, please indicate. I've got Kent, Lindsay, Sarah, Lauren, Tucker, Dan, Heidi. I think that's everybody. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Now minutes. Okay. Public comment. Apologies for getting my order wrong. Any public comment on items that aren't on the agenda already? Seeing none. Any report on budget adjustments? And I think there was a teaser. Oh, no. Okay. No budget requests and seating of new representatives. I don't anticipate any of those. We've got a full slate right now.
So one of the questions I had is I was looking at one set of notes and I haven't had a chance to look at the others. Dorothy said she's an alternate and I believe her, but I just wanted to confirm that. So anyway, that's something I will confirm. If you could give me 1 second, because if there is some glitch, then I would just suggest that we take care of it and make sure that she is. So if you could give me just 1 second. I
may be wrong.
Oh,
but
well,
for,
let's,
for one of these meetings like a year ago.
yeah, so let's just
But that might have been Lamoille, actually.
okay. Well, if you are for Lamoille, then it's, I mean, Mel is not here, and I understand the voting situation, but I guess perhaps I would ask you, Lauren, would it be your desire or intent that Dorothy is also? Because when I look at this Basin 6, I don't see Dorothy's name. So if you would like to forward her and if the board would like to consider, then you could take care of that just so that we don't have to do it at some future date.
Let's just do it. If that's okay with people. I'm planning on eventually taking time off, so let's just do it.
Yeah, currently it looks like Mel is listed as the alternate. So
Yeah. So the protocol would just be that the board would recognize Dorothy as a second alternate for the conservation district. And if someone wanted to formalize that in the motion and second it and get it approved, then the minutes would have that.
someone want to articulate a motion? Kent.
I so move.
Okay, Kent is motioning that we vote on Dorothy being a second alternate listed officially for Lauren. Is there a second?
And I'll second it.
Sarah seconding that. Okay, all in favor, please indicate. Got Lindsay, Sarah, Dan, Tucker, Kent, Heidi, Beth. Any opposed?
I think I have to abstain. I'm not 100% sure.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna abstain.
Any abstentions? Got Lauren. All right, motion passes. Welcome, Dorothy. Okay, application review is next. The meat of the meeting.
Yes. And if I may just kind of tee things up, Lindsay, is
Please
that
do.
okay? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just going to run through a few slides before the individual presentations would be made, just to help people get on the same page. There were 4 applications that were submitted in response to the call for applications. That's kind of a middling response. It doesn't match the high, but it's not a bad response. The total amount of funding requested as part of this round is about $400,000. When you look down the road at the probable or possible implementation costs, and I know it's a difficult thing to do, but it's in the vicinity of 1.1 to 1.6 million dollars. That lower number accounts for the fact that for one of the projects that you will be discussing, there's already recognized a significant source of outside funding. The phosphorus reduction that's associated with the projects that you will be talking about today is about 74 kilograms. And in the memo that accompanied the packet, you'll see that we did recognize or recommend that the council consider authorizing the up to amounts requested by the applicants. This slide just highlights the fact that you've got everything from an implementation project to a preliminary design project to a couple of final design projects. I think this is the order that some of the materials that you received was in, and I might suggest that you do them in this order, and that way Kent could take over the gavel while Lindsay's project is being considered, and then it could be passed back. Does that sound okay? You can see in the highlighted portions of this slide what the projects are and the amounts requested in green, and then in gray, the kind of ballpark estimates of the future implementation costs for those projects. I got a slide here. This is pretty simple, similar to the one that was in the meeting packet. This is where the totals are. I'm going to skip over this one and then spend just a moment talking about the funding context. I did this in the Lamoille, and I feel like I need to do it here in the Missisquoi. The amount of funding that has been allocated, I'll use that word, for the Missisquoi Basin over 3 years. We're still in year 1 funding. That's what we're tapping, but we have years 2 and years 3 lined up. The amount of funding represented by all 3, the total award is about 7.6. The amount of money that's for projects is around 6.3, $6.5 million. The amount of funding that's been awarded so far is about $1.5 million, but the amount that's been spent to date is only, I say only, $175,000 roughly, although there's a very sizable project that's going to be constructed this summer, and that number is going to climb over $1 million, and we will be moving into the year 2 funding as a result. But the estimated cost to fully implement the projects that the board has already approved is somewhere in the ballpark of $4.9 million. I'm going to just look ahead and say, okay, if you approved everything today that was sought, the awards would be approaching $2 million. The phosphorus reduction would be about 275, and the estimated cost to implement would be somewhere around $6 million, $6.5 million. I just wanted people to have that context. The $6 to $6.5 million is the rough estimate for the cost to implement. It isn't what is necessarily going to be what the WIC and the QUISP fund, but that's something that we just want to keep our eye on. Any questions about that?
Yes,
If-
actually, could you just walk me through how you calculate out the future phosphorus? The 145.3, I'm assuming, is just being carried forward.
So what I'm showing on this slide, basically we have 3 years of funding. And I know that the term for the Basin Council and the QUISP is 2 more years. So it's a 5-year term initially. We'll have a conversation at some other meeting about how the renewal process works. At the end of the meeting last time, I did share a memo that maybe, if anybody wants me to resend it, I will. But that memo describes the process for renewal, but I won't get into that today. For the purposes of this table, I just used the year 1 amounts. Year 2 was kind of an exceptional year where the amount of funding was higher. Year 3, it was also higher. Considering the additional stresses on the state budget as a result of all that's going on in the world, I just conservatively estimated the 1.9 for the next 2 years based on the first year. And I also used the corresponding phosphorus amount. So it's just a ballpark. It's not anything more than an estimate, but it's a ballpark to give people some kind of idea of what things might look like if we're taking the whole 5-year period into account. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, it does. And I can follow up with you later. I don't want to hold up.
Okay, well, then perhaps, Lindsay, it's time to turn the gavel over to Kent to chair this portion of the meeting.
Yeah, Kent, would you mind stepping in?
I've got it.
All right.
So I'm not sure who will be making your presentation, Lindsay, but I'm going to make it possible for them to share.
Great. I will be sharing my screen. And Ellen, please jump in as appropriate, as needed. I just have a couple of simple slides. Feel free to pose questions. But I'll just run through this and try to get to see everybody on my second screen. The implementation project that we are proposing is the removal of a dam and sleeper pond in Newport Center. Oops. These are just the rough details. We did receive some project development dollars to help push this project forward, although it's got a longer history than that. Adjacent landowners brought this project to Karen actually in like 2017, I think. We contracted with SLR in 2018 to do an alternatives analysis, which came out with a replacement, removal, repair, and no action. Then we got some select board feedback. The town does own the dam, and they approved us pursuing removal. Then there was a gap in time where nothing happened, and then we got some private funding to do design work. That started in 2023, I think, wrapped up last November with the final design. Cultural resources review has been done. We're in the final stages of permitting, and we do have removal funds for part of the project through the Flood Resilient Community Fund and through WOV's dam removal block grant. The implementation has a watershed project ID 12698, and we are requesting 217,000 to push that through the finish line. We've had some increased cost estimates, to nobody's surprise, I'm sure, and there's going to be some additional soil testing that we're reallocating some of the other funds towards. So this will help fill those gaps. There's an estimated P reduction of 30.28 kilograms. Anything you want to add, Ellen, to that? Those are the boring details. Now just sort of the more placemaking, just some photos and images, and I'll talk to you guys about sort of the story. The dam has been failing for a very long time. This is an image of it from up the bank, obviously. I guess I didn't include a good picture, but so this is the dam here, number 3. There is a town road, crossroad, just above it. There's abutments here. This is formerly the pond between kind of 1 and 2 here. And then this is a railroad constriction. There's about 8 miles of stream upstream of this that would be reconnected. This is a natural bedrock area. You'll see a projected image in a couple of slides of what that might look like. And there is a falls somewhat downstream, so it's not great brook trout habitat, but it's still worthy to reconnect. And the backstory is just that this landowner here has been here a long time and said, hey, could we dredge the pond again, make it a pond? And so that started the whole, no, we don't really do that anymore. Let's figure out some other ways. And the adjacent landowners have been pretty supportive and have some strong requests, but have been overall understanding of what it might look like if we make this a natural stream bed instead of basically a swamp, which is what it now is. There's been some concern about, this is a hill up here, so there's been concern about water coming down here and backing up some culverts in this area and causing some flooding concerns. So getting rid of this failing dam will be a great thing for this sort of village area. There's also a new housing unit, 2 new housing units being built by Rural Edge right here, which is great and needed. Ellen, anything to add while I have the overview?
I would just add maybe that the impoundment historically was for a sawmill long time ago, but that the actual concrete structure was built by the town to create a fire pond and also for ice. And so, you know, at the time, there wasn't refrigeration. People harvested ice from it. And so part of this project has been creating a new fire pond for fire suppression. So that was one of the reasons, you know, that the folks in the immediate vicinity were like, this is a pond. It needs to be a pond, with this idea of needing fire suppression. But there's a new fire pond just up the hill. So just to add that little tidbit.
Yeah, thanks, Ellen. That was a big win. Ellen was very instrumental in getting that done. So, and there's been much appreciation from the village about that. This is from the design plans, so you can see sort of the natural water course, which is pretty much what is existing. But there would be, you know, these would dry out and would become less swampy. One of the landowners has a concern about there's active beaver lodge. I think the lodge is like up here, and so it's been fun to sort of reassure her that, like, yeah, they're versatile. They'll still keep some squishy spots. And then we do have just some cute little before and after projections. So this is what it currently looks like standing on the bridge on Crossroad, and that's the possible what it'll look like in the future. And here is the dam, and there is sort of the more natural bedrocky cascade. And I think that's all I had. Yeah. Questions?
I had one, Lindsay, if
Yeah.
no one else does. Could you talk a little bit about the schedule of this project? If I'm looking at the right sheet, it's construction through December 31 of this year. Can you?
Yeah, so these flood resilient community fund dollars need to be expended by, oops, I can't highlight it. Need to be expended by December of this year. So we are in a bit of a time crunch to get to use that. That's $400,000 that we don't want to leave on the table. So we are anticipating bid very soon.
Okay. So yes, I'm, you know, getting a little bit of practice with these through through Lauren's project. So hopefully we'll be able to execute agreement in less time, assuming the Basin Council votes to approve this. So that, anyway, I just saw that timetable and just wanted to be sure that that is what it is. And then also, I'm just kind of curious because I know that Lauren's project, again, it's a dam removal. There's monitoring by the Division for Historic Preservation, and yet in this particular case, your cultural resource findings were basically not a problem. So, and there's no chance that that's gonna come back, right? They've signed off, it's signed off.
I can speak to that a little bit. So there has been discussion about the amount of sediment removal and where that will end up as part of the Army Corps permit. And so that's still, there is potential that there will be some monitoring. It's minimal as prescribed at this point, but there is a chance that that might change. One thing that is different, I'll add this also though, that our project boundary is very tight to where the sediment removal is happening. There's not a really expansive floodplain laterally because of the two constriction points at each end of the project. So that helped historic preservation to sort of put a box around their area of concern also.
Lauren?
I'll just flag too, related to what Dean has been talking about. We've been talking through the site access easement for probably
too long,
2 to 3 months. Hopefully that'll help streamline your guys' process. But just a heads up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you saw my email, the form issue should be resolved by tomorrow's, but you've helped the situation by getting some of these things ironed out.
Thank you, Lauren.
I'll say I love this project too. I think it's a really neat project.
Yeah, Lauren
I
was
actually, go ahead.
Lauren was in the stream during the alternatives analysis. She was back when she worked for Malone and McBroom.
Yeah, this is a cool site. I'm excited to see it restored. Thanks for continuing to work on it over all those years.
Any other questions about Sleeper Pond? All right, I'm going to stop sharing.
All right, I guess I have the gavel. Is it time for me to use it and request a motion for approval of this project?
That would be the case, and we found in a recent meeting that it was helpful for some people to have the numbers in the chat. So I'm putting some of that information in the chat for.
This is Lauren. I make a motion to approve the Sleeper Pond Dam project implementation funding up to $217,630.
Thank you for the motion. May I have a second? Put your hand up and I'll recognize you. I see Beth's hand up. You have to unmute. Please unmute.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the project that MRBA has presented. Is there any further discussion? Please raise your hand so I can recognize you if there is. I counted to 5 in my own mind. I don't see any hands. So I'm going to say there's no further discussion. All in favor of approving this project, raise your hand so we can count you. And in my view, I can see Sarah, Dan, Tucker, Heidi, Lauren, and Beth, and then please count myself. Are there any negative votes? Anybody abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
So we have Lindsay abstaining. In that case, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for presenting and looking forward to seeing completion. Is it now appropriate for me to pass the gavel back to Lindsay?
I think so.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kent.
You bet.
Lauren, you should be able to share and present your projects.
Well, wonderful. Alrighty. Hey, everybody. This is the first of 3 projects we'll be presenting today. I did not make as pretty of a presentation as Lindsay did, but this is the West Hill Brook Strategic Wood Edition preliminary design. We're requesting $6,904 and expect the total project to cost at the end of the day between $55,000 and $75,000. We don't believe that a cultural resources review will be necessary, but we will definitely still submit the review form. And the estimated P reduction is 4.81 kilograms per year. And there's something in the chat. Oh,
nothing important.
And this project, and I will turn this over to Red Start in a moment, was actually developed by Red Start. And they came to the district to try to secure some funds to get this moving forward. We will still do a competitive procurement for final design as required by all of the procurement policies. But this is a project that Red Star has been working on with the landowner. to add wood to this headwater stream. And with that, I'll probably turn it over to Red Start to talk a little bit more about the project.
Sure. Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, this is for the preliminary design for the Strategic Woody Addition project, in which we will be adding coarse wood debris to these headwater streams in the Trout River or along the Trout River. Most of what we'll be targeting will be floodplain engagement for reconnecting floodplains that are no longer frequently engaged, which is where we will be getting a lot of the phosphorus reduction from. Yeah, the preliminary design request is looking for funding to be able to do more thorough scoping of the stream length and the total amount of floodplains available, and then to come together for, like Lauren said, a proper final design after. Yeah, are there any questions about scope of work or anything?
If I may, Lindsay.
Yes, please do.
Sorry. Yeah. Could you just talk a little bit about the phosphorus reduction calculations? We've worked with Red Start in the Lamoille Basin. It's been a tough road, but could you just address the phosphorus reduction calculations and the level of comfort that you have with those numbers?
Sure. Yeah, seeing as this is still in a somewhat early design stage, our current phosphorus numbers are based on the desktop review and some in the field scoping, which didn't specifically target floodplain, but was more addressing overall stream characteristics. But our desktop review was trying to identify specific floodplain pockets based on what we could see with the ortho, with the topography. And that was, we were able to come up with what I do feel is a pretty confident estimate that we kind of divided up between the different reaches of stream that ended up coming out to, I believe we had 4.8 kilograms per year. Yeah. Yeah, and future design will be able to give us the boots on the ground more confirmation of that number. Yeah, and as we can get better confirmation of incision ratios along the stream. Right now we had gone off of, I believe, the default incision we were given on desktop review for everything. Yeah.
Karen?
Hi, I just wanted to add something in because I think that often when the estimated phosphorus reduction is provided and then we come back, or Stacy Pomeroy comes back and, you know, it's much less. I want to put the caveats on that we have had discussions with Stacy about this, Pomeroy, about this project, as well as Keith Ritchie. And they, you know, based on desktop review, and the fact that they went out there to look more for, I guess, habitat and not looking at the incision ratio, that it's very possible that the incision that they think might be there is not there. I know, Finley, you had said that you were very confident in it, but I would ask you to be maybe step back from that unless you actually know there's incision, because the desktop incision is not going to be accurate. So anyway, that's my caveat. This is, we don't know if floodplain is actually needing to be accessed here or not. And this is an area where one doesn't expect there to be or need to be a lot of, that there will be a lot of floodplain access. Not that it's not a bad project. It's a good project, but.
Yeah, Karen, thank you for that. I'm with you that we certainly at the moment do not have surefire numbers for incision. For this level of application, I think, yeah, we would need much more field verification of that. But yes, I agree with your point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is your design or your proposal is going to do just that. And so that's exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there other questions or comments on this proposal? Go ahead, Kent.
I'm just curious about the ownership of the property. Is this private property, state, municipal? What is the land use in the area? I can't really quite picture it from the map. If those are ag fields, hay fields above, or, and then I'm thinking back to the catastrophic flood event that suffered in that township 25 years ago. I'm thinking that this is on a different slope and not on that slope, but I'm just a little curious about the location, and especially adjoining landowners.
Yeah, thank you. It's a privately owned parcel that is in pretty remote forest. I believe the parcel itself is roughly 2,000 acres of forest land. Those are likely not ag fields directly above it.
Is it just woodland that would be used for lumber, or is it sugaring operation, or what's the land use?
I believe it's multi-purpose, so managed for timber, habitat, carbon sequestration, water quality.
But not a sugar bush?
No, not currently.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Dean has put the numbers in the chat. This request is for $6,904 for preliminary design with a projected phosphorus reduction of 4.8 kilograms and a total project cost between 55 and 75,000. If there are no further desires for clarification or questions on anything, then a motion would be appropriate. Sarah?
I move that we approve the project for $6,904.
Okay, we have a motion from Sarah. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a second from Beth. All in favor of the project, please indicate by raising virtual or real hand. I've got Kent, Lindsay, Sarah, Beth, Tucker, Heidi, Dan. That's everyone I see. Are there any abstentions?
This is Lauren. I abstain.
And are there any opposing? Seeing none, the motion carries. On to the next one, Lauren.
Thanks, everybody. Here's the next one. This is a Marsh Brook floodplain restoration final design. So this is the Marsh Brook in the Lake Carmi watershed, which many people have much interest in. And the first thing I do want to say for this particular project is that there is a Northwest Regional Planning Commission conflict of interest here, in that the landowner of this property is a employee of the Northwest Regional Planning Commission. And just wanted to get that out in the open.
Lauren, if I could just jump in and
Please
explain
do.
a little bit further. There is a requirement that exists that when the Basin Council is presented with an application where there's a situation like this, then the approval motion must specifically note that the Basin Council knows that this project involves land owned by someone employed by the QUISP, by the Regional Planning Commission. That's why we're going to such great lengths to explain this. It's because it's a requirement. And so we're just drawing your attention to the fact, and I will remind folks a little bit later that whoever makes the motion should also just reference the fact that the Basin Council acknowledges that the land is owned by or co-owned, I'm not sure of all the specifics, by someone who works for the Regional Planning Commission.
Thanks, Dean. And so we are requesting $91,225 for final design. For the anticipated total project cost is $536,000 at this time. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. And the P reduction that we're expecting is 22.4 kilograms per year. We would like to go to implementation in 2026. So we're hoping to get final design cranking this year so we can implement next year. And we have confirmed with the Agency of Ag that this is an eligible project, that they would approve, and it does not fall under the RAPs because it is on farmland. So what's going on here in this fun map? Marsh Brook comes down. Can you guys see my mouse when I'm moving it? Yes, okay. It comes down this way, and also comes from the south north, and then joins into the main channel of the Marsh Brook, and then goes under the road and down towards Lake Carmi. We have 4 years ago, we started this project to do 30% design to understand what the different alternatives might be to help reduce the phosphorus load and restore the channel of Marsh Brook on this property. We've been in conversation with the landowners for the past 4 years about what a preferred alternative might look like and all of the various items. And so currently, the goal here is a very exciting goal to restore this section of Marsh Brook to its historic natural channel, which actually I don't know, went down this way and then came back up. And so that's the goal of the final design, is to really nail down basically plugging this ditch, straightened and sized channel, and sending the water through a new constructed path this way. and some wood addition in the stream in the woods here to try to increase floodplain access in that part of the incised channel as well. In final design, we are also going to be evaluating this culvert here and this culvert here to understand if those culverts have any influential impact on what we're doing here, and if they do, maybe some redesign and replacement of those culverts as well to make sure that the stream is functioning as we would hope it would once we are done with the project. And so that $536,000 does include theoretically 2 culvert replacements as well. So it's probably a bit on the high side of what we're going to look at the end of the day, but hoping in final design to really get a much deeper and clearer understanding of how those culverts are impacting this space. As you all know, Marsh Brook is a fun one in the Lake Carmi watershed. And so I think anything we can do to improve fee reductions in this neck of the woods with willing landowners is something we're excited to do. And I'll stop chatting and take any questions.
I don't have a question, but I just want to underline that last statement of yours. Amazing doing work with willing landowners. Nice job.
Thanks.
Karen?
Oh, Karen, you're muted.
Had a question about the SWA in the wooded section there. So I know Stacy has talked about one of the criteria is to make sure that any wood would not be placed in such a way that could impact a downstream infrastructure like a culvert. So have you talked to her about that? Is it worthy of putting money into design if that might be a barrier to installation?
We haven't specifically talked about that just yet, but do intend to look at that more deeply as part of final design. Yes.
All right. Before you put money into the final design for SWA, make sure she's okay with that then.
Okay. Definitely.
And the town road for me.
Yeah.
Kent?
I was curious about the use of that land. Are there mature milking animals on the dairy, and is that land used? Are there any animals pastured in that woodlot?
What an excellent question. So right now these fields are all rented out to the farm just north of here, which is Chris Wagner's farm. And the fields are just used for hay at this point in time. And in the woodlot, there are no animals that access that woodlot.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No horses or pigs or beef cows or goats or any of our growing uses of land that's not under cultivation?
There are no animals that access that land. I think is how, yes.
Thank you.
Domestic animals.
Yes. Yes, domesticated animals. Thank you, Dean, for that clarification. That'd be quite sad if no animals were in there. I guess I'll toss in too. We did do an ARA cultural resources assessment for this area. We know that we'll need a phase 1 done based on where the area of impact will be based on the final design. So that is included in the budget as well.
Any other questions, or should we move on to a motion? Dean has put the numbers in the chat. We've got a request for $91,225, a total projected project cost of $536,000, annual phosphorus reduction of 22.4 kilograms. And just to make sure it's very clear and acknowledged in the minutes, this land is owned by or has ownership interest by an NRPC staff member.
I mean, I would just mention that I can recuse myself if I'm not needed for a quorum as the NRPC rep.
I don't think that's necessary, especially with the conversation we had earlier about, there being no financial ties. But Dean, correct me if that's different because of the QUISP.
Yeah, I hadn't. No, Heidi, I don't believe you would need to recuse yourself for the reason. For the same reason.
And I would make that motion if you're ready for a motion.
Great, I'm definitely ready for a motion. Go, yeah, Heidi. So motion to approve the funding. Is that what you're stating, Heidi?
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah,
I was
no worries.
looking at it on the map. It's a spectacular area.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I always pull up the parcel maps and I'm looking around. And all right, we have a motion on the table from Heidi to approve funding this project. Is there a second? Got a second from Sarah. And we will seek all in favor. I do just want to note that Beth is voting via chat because her insurance adjuster showed up. So all in favor, please indicate with a raise of hand. I've got Kent, Lindsay, Sarah, I'm including Beth, Heidi, Tucker, and Dan. Are there abstentions?
This is Lauren. I'm abstaining.
And any opposed to the project? Seeing none, the motion passes. Congrats, and again, thanks for keeping this work happening in this area, Lauren.
Thank you all for the approval. We're excited for this one. Well, we're excited about all of them. We're excited about all of them. And speaking of all of them, here's my last one for you to consider today. This is a Rock River tributary floodplain restoration final design. Oh, that's supposed to be a comma, not a period. So sorry. That would be quite the fun project. We're looking for $87,359 to go to final design on this project. We're anticipating a total project cost between $230,000 to $250,000 and an estimated annual P reduction that will be refined in final design of 16.3 kilograms per year. Again, hoping to go to implementation in 2026. And we have confirmed with the Agency of Ag that this is an eligible project, an eligible project based on Agency of Ag. So here's the cute little stream coming down this way. And we are looking to do floodplain restoration as part of a larger suite of projects that is a combination of a VLT OPAV easement, which is basically paying a landowner, and Tucker, please interrupt me, but is basically paying the landowner for the river management rights on a previously conserved VLT parcel. And we're go ahead. Please correct me.
That's kind of something a little bit different. So an OPAV is a, we go back in and buy a purchase right. It's called the option to purchase at ag value. And with that comes water quality protections. So this will get our 50-foot riparian buffer zone on it as well.
Thanks, Tucker. You guys are so fun with your different things that mean the same thing. And then also hoping to put a lot that land into CREP as well once the implementation project is done. So we're not going to plant trees before we excavate if that's what we decide to do. So we're looking to also build upon a project that was previously done. I might forget all the partners, but by Friends of Northern Lake Champlain and Agency of Ag to construct a 2-tier channel in 2017 along the stream. And so we're looking to, in final design, evaluate extending the area of interest and also widening the restoration area. So previously, I believe that the 2-tier channel was about 15 feet on either side of the channel, and now we have 50 feet to work with. So we're looking to build on that success and really expand the work here. And so the total width of the project area would be about 110 feet because the channel is about 10 feet wide. And we are hoping, again, for our multiple timelines moving forward, we're hoping to get through final design this year and get to implementation for construction season next year. Not skipping any steps or anything like that, but that's what we're aiming to do. That's probably enough information for now. Any questions?
Just have a question about in the application, there was like a note from the landowner that was like, would like to see the same ditch width. And does that mean this like the 15 feet on either side or?
Yeah. That was an unfortunate thing that happened there. We have an updated statement of landowner approval that Dorothy sent over to Dean yesterday. So that was a mistake there. The landowner, I think in theory, would like to see the same width, but he that was a signature before we had a full field visit with partners, and it was very clearly explained to him that it's going to be 50 feet on the other side is what he's giving up.
And you have indicated here that there might be modifications with that also. You're hoping to expand the 50 feet to the existing ditch, I assume.
That is the plan as well, yes.
Nice.
I have a question about that, that 50 feet. So with that 50 feet, is it similar to, like when there's a corridor easement with the state, it would move with the corridor, or does it move within that 100 feet? And it's, I guess really my real question is there an opportunity to create sinuosity here? Like the previous project, so exciting because, I mean, most of the problem is the geometry of these straightened, what are waterways, and now we call them ditches, that if there's an opportunity to introduce sinuosity within that 100 feet now without having the landowner bulk, because when the stream moves, then the easement moves also. You know
Yeah,
what I
that's a
mean?
great
So
point, and I think I can speak to that because it's our easement. So this buffer would not move. We do have some moving buffers that move with the stream. This one will not, and we did that for the flexibility of being able to kind of create whatever cool thing within that zone we could. We're retiring the 50 feet no matter what happens in there, and so I think, like you said, having the ability to do some of that sinuosity and stuff would be a really cool outcome.
Kent.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a couple questions. At the bend, or I think just a little bit below it, from working on the project in the past, the engineering firm identified a ledge. And that's kind of why the project ended where it did. And I'm just curious, how that ledge is going to be accounted for in the new construction, if it has been accounted for, and if it actually extends beyond the easement. So I'd like a little explanation about how that ledge is going to be accounted for in the new design. Or is that something that's yet to be discovered?
Yeah, so what we expect to find in final design is that the ledge is right along the stream, but hopefully it doesn't extend the full 50 feet from the stream bank. And so we'll actually, what our goal is that we'll be able to lower some of the area behind the ledge as well to increase floodplain connection on that side. We have not yet dug for the ledge beyond what's visible within the stream channel. And so we are hoping that it might just be like an outcropping right there and doesn't extend the whole way back.
Let's say that it does. Let's say it does extend. Does that, how is VLT going to account for that? Are we going to conserve more land, or what's the next step?
I guess to be clear, the whole property is conserved. This is a buffer on the conserved land. It was conserved in 1996. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that would be for the engineer to figure out. What do you think, Lauren? I don't think we can extend the buffer. We'll be closing this project in December or so before implementation. And so I don't know as though extending the buffer is a reasonable outcome with the landowner either. So I don't know. Can you just chisel some of the ledge away? Is that a engineering outcome?
I don't think bedrock removal is allowed under CWIP.
I understood that there'd have to be blasting. That's my recollection, is that there'd be blasting involved.
Yeah, so I guess if indeed the ledge does extend on across the whole 110 feet width of the buffer, I think that'll definitely be a big conversation point, and whether or not it still makes sense to do the restoration upstream. But I imagine it would still make sense to do the upstream restoration to widen out to the 110 feet. We don't have an exact answer there. I don't think it would change anything at VLT. I think it would just change the design.
And I will say, Kent, recently this has been kind of cleaned out as a ditch and has lowered the water level significantly from like when I first visited the property and likely when you guys were working out there too. And so I don't know as though the ledge is as big of a challenge as it initially presented to be. Because there's not water on the benches now. And when I first went out there, the benches were, almost continuously submerged until, mid-June.
Okay, so you're leading into my next question, and my next question has to do with O&M agreements. And I'm just kind of curious how VLT O&M agreements, how they align with what we worked with the powers with the EPA when we did the original project. I've got experience doing projects. I've put in tree plantings, and then in 2 years had a farmer out there with a ditching and remove all the trees on a project. I've had ditches where we've done the construction on them, and then 4 or 5 years down the road, they work. These projects work and sediment builds up. And then you've got farmer in there with an excavator digging out the ditches. Don't bother to call, get permission, or get any guidance on how to go up ahead and do it. on their own. And I'm just kind of curious about O&M on this. What kind of restrictions are there? You know, if you have put in a project like this and have a lot of success, and that sediment will build up. I'll guarantee it will.
Yeah.
I don't know what your lifeline or what your lifetime is on this project, which you expect it to be. But I'm kind of curious about the O&M and how strict it will be.
Sure. Yeah. Just speaking about the VLT buffer, any management inside of that buffer needs an approval letter from the Vermont Land Trust. So something like cleaning the benches that's part of this practice, we would approve. Something like digging the ditch out down the road that isn't consistent with this practice, we wouldn't approve.
Dean, I'm going to let you.
Would you also
jump in.
direct where the where is the soil supposed to go? Would you direct that as well, or is that up to the farmer just to wing it?
We wouldn't direct that. Imagine we would want it wherever the kind of original spoils pile was.
Do you know if there are pile drains that empty into that area? Have those been identified?
Yes,
There are
And they have been identified?
some, but probably not all yet.
Okay. And on your map, I'm looking for the new ditch that comes across. There's a new ditch that comes across from the wooded area on the right. Is that identified? See, that went in after the original structure. Now I'm curious if there are other ditches that are going to be dug across there.
I don't know exactly where that location is, and I don't know if the landowner is planning to dig more ditches.
Okay, just an alert.
Dean.
Yeah, I just wanted to just draw a little bit of a contrast. I think some of Kent's questions fall within what I would call stewardship. And this is maybe going to be an unusual situation. And when I say stewardship, I am describing the kinds of things that VLT can do as the holder of a conservation easement. And when I hear O&M and we're talking about using clean water funds, it has a particular meaning. So what I was going to start by saying is the default position is, oh, this project gets funded, and if it gets funded for implementation, there will need to be an O&M agreement. And it's too bad Chris Rottler's here, but there would need to be an O&M agreement, and the purpose of that O&M agreement is to make sure that the project keeps doing what it's designed to do so that the QUISP can continue to get credit. Now, I will be the first person to admit that well, depending on the costs, and remind me what the implementation cost of this one is, it's going to be, sorry?
Like 250.
Yeah, so it would cross the threshold if the implementation costs are greater than 200,000 for a site access easement, but that's really only about giving the clean water service provider the ability to get to the site. Now, some people might say, because this question has come up in another basin where a conservation organization, I don't know if it was VLT or Vermont Rivers Conservancy, they've already got a conservation easement. And the question was, would DEC basically allow the easement to control? And from what I've heard is that DEC is willing to consider that. So what I'm trying to end up saying is that the position, the basic position may be a little bit better than it would be if there was no VLT easement. But I think what I'm also hearing from Kent's questions is that this is a property that if it's funded, regardless of who's monitoring it, is one where the level of responsibility may be higher than just your typical project. Anyway, if people had any questions about the fact that there might be both an easement for conservation and an easement for site access, I'll answer that question. And then the only other thing is that in terms of tiles, some of the recent ortho photos make it pretty clear where the tiles are, and there are a lot of them.
Thanks, Dean.
I guess I
Any
have
other?
one other question for you, Lauren. My understanding of a two-tiered ditch is that it's really thought of as a stormwater practice. And would you agree with that characterization as opposed to a riparian practice?
I would say a two-tiered ditch is a stormwater practice. A two-tiered channel is a floodplain restoration and stream restoration practice. I think Stacy would back me up there too.
Okay,
I
and
think
this is a two-tier channel.
it currently has a section that is a two-tier channel. The goal of this final design is beyond a two-tier channel. So attempting to get some amount of sinuosity, maybe some pockets of wetlands, maybe some wood addition. So it is beyond a two-tier channel that we're hoping to do here. Kent.
If the ledge is removed, I'm curious what that will do to the ability of the two-tier ditch to hold water to allow for the sediment to settle out. Has that question been answered?
I guess part one, I don't know that we would be allowed to remove the ledge. But then I do think I expect part of the design will include some level of grade control-esque structures, such as strategic wood addition, to keep the stream slow moving during higher flows, to enable velocities to drop and sediment to drop out.
Well, I know like currently, there's a restriction where the ditch ends on the north end, and then at that, at the ledge. And it really works. I mean, the water, the sediment really does drop out. We didn't know if it would or not, but I can tell you those benches fill up. But if that's all cleared out and we're just making a conventional ditch here where we're just increasing the flow, I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about that, if that's really been taken into account. Because are we talking design, or are we talking implementation now?
This is final design.
So I'd really like to have that answered in your study.
Definitely, yeah. And so we've scoped this final design to be both final design and a little bit of alternatives analysis too, to kind of get at some of those questions. But the goal certainly is not to increase velocities in this stream by any stretch of the imagination. That is not what's going to happen. And I'll be happy to share the results of the alternatives analysis for sure.
Any final questions, or shall we move on to a motion?
I'm sorry, I have one more question, and I wonder if the ag agency has been consulted on buffer widths, considering the new design or the new completion. And what is the landowners? Is he in agreement with that, and is he willing to comply?
So the ag agency has been consulted about this project, that it's an allowable project. Buffer specific, we haven't specifically asked them that question, but because there'll be 50 feet on either side of the channel. As it stands now, there should be at least 25 feet of buffer between the active ag field and the channel within the easement area that will likely also be enrolled in CREP.
So you're measuring from the channel and not from the top of bank. Is that right?
So that's a good question. I don't imagine that the top of bank will be less than 25 feet from the edge of the easement buffer easement edge.
Although the whole property is in grass, so it would just be a matter of a manure spreading setback at that point.
True.
For RAP buffers.
Thanks, Tucker.
Okay.
I want to note that Dean put in the chat the updated landowner support letter. You can click on it if you want to see it. Final questions? Or is anyone up to making a motion? Dean has put the numbers in the chat. Just to remind us, this request is for $87,359. Total project cost projected to be between 230 and 250,000. Annual P reduction 16.3 kilograms per year. Anyone comfortable speaking to this proposal? Oh, Sarah. Didn't see your hand up.
I move that we approve $87,359 towards the estimated project costs on this project on the Rock River tributary.
We have a proposal or a motion to approve the proposal. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Got a second from Beth. All in favor, please indicate with a hand. And we'll read us off. I've got Lindsay, Beth, Tucker, Sarah. Got 4. Is that everybody? We've got any abstentions?
This is Lauren. I abstain.
And then we've got opposition. We've got Kent.
May I offer an explanation of my negative vote?
Sure.
I can't vote for this because I'm not satisfied with the discussion on the O&M agreement. And I'd just like to have that in the record as this moves forward. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for that explanation. I think I don't have a full suite of votes. So I'm not sure if I missed. My numbers don't add up. If I missed you, please let me know.
I abstained.
Oh, apologies. Dan abstained. Okay. That takes me to, is that everybody? I think that's everybody now. So we have 4 votes approving, 2 abstentions, and 1 opposition.
5 votes are required for an approval. So this project would need to be resubmitted if there was going to be any further consideration.
Great. Oh, Dan had to jump off. Great. I still feel like my numbers are off, but yeah. Apologize. Does anyone?
Can we double check the numbers?
Yeah, I had 2 abstentions, 1 opposition. We should have had 8 voting, or 8 voting members represented, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I had 2 abstentions. So can I see the apologies for making us do this again, but can I see the approving votes again if you voted to approve? There we go. I do have 5. So I have Lindsay, Sarah, Tucker, Heidi, Beth. I think I missed you, Heidi, in the initial count.
Okay.
Which the recording will show, but I believe I did not say your name, Heidi. So we do have 5. 5 approving, 1 opposed, and 2 abstentions, which gets us the 8 I expected.
And I would gladly offer to do a call on this project once we have some alternatives analysis and maybe some more answers for folks too in the future, obviously before we try to get any implementation funding, but maybe as soon as we have it too. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, that was a fairly marathon review of 4 projects. Thanks, everybody, for your attention to detail, for your astute questions. It's good to have that kind of discussion, and it's great to see the variety of projects that are being proposed in our region and geographic region. We had almost Highgate to Newport Center, covering the watershed. Next item is expedited project development program. So Dean, you've got some updates on that.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. We're in the home stretch. Perhaps it's going to be possible to finish a little early. I'm not sure. Don't want to jinx us, but this is a brief presentation on something that many of you are familiar with. This slide recaps basically the situation. Back a year ago or so, the Basin Council approved a proposal to create a funding program. Basically, what was going on at the time was clean water service providers were being encouraged to increase the amount of money that was going out for project development. And so we thought one way of doing that would be to make it simpler to seek and obtain project development funds. And so last August, the Basin Council considered creating the authority, or giving the CLISP the authority to create a program that said, basically, if you're a pre-qualified partner and you want to do some project development in the Missisquoi Basin, then you basically have to submit a 1-page application, and you can get as much as $10,000 or $10,000 over the course of a year. So the Basin Council was essentially pre-approving the awards. It was allowing applicants to use a simpler form, and basically was designed to meet this objective, try to get more money out for project development. Some basin councils seem to have more interest in this kind of approach than others, but we thought it was worth proposing, and this basin council agreed. As part of that arrangement, the staff was asked to also see if it wasn't possible to get an ID number that any of the partner organizations could use, so that it was just one less thing to do in order to start doing the project development. At the time, we weren't successful in getting that ID number. However, recently we were successful. So what that means is that if you are a partner organization that's been pre-qualified and you have an idea to do some project development, but you don't already have an ID and you want to use this, I'll call it generic ID number, that's an approach you can use. Now, in the Missisquoi Basin, there hasn't been as much interest in using this approach as there has been in some other places. In the Lamoille, I believe there have been 2 different organizations that have used this type of approach. And I am aware that one entity in our basin might use it. And this just means that if somebody wants to apply, the process will be a little bit simpler than it was in the months since it was first created. Watershed Project ID number 12697 exists for that purpose. There's nothing that I'm going to ask you to consider doing today. I had said something in the email or in the meeting packet that I might have a proposal to change the program in some way, and I do not have any recommendation or request at this time, but it might be something that I would bring back to you. I'll just take a minute to say, well, what is 12697? What is this Watershed Project ID that has been issued now that can be used for this purpose? It's essentially like a miniature version of something called the block grants. And in past times, DEC would create block grants that would be administered by a block grant holder and channel money out for activities including project development. And this ID number is essentially like a miniature version of that. So the way that we cracked the code to get an ID number was to propose something that's block grant light. And I don't know that I need to get into the weeds too much today unless people have questions. But as you can see in the slide, the fact that this number exists will allow the clean water service provider to allow watershed groups, folks who have eligibility to get these funds, to get the money faster in an amount up to $10,000. It'll all be wrapped up. Anybody that takes advantage of this approach, we will basically put a pause on it come June of 2027. We will combine all of the work that's been done into a package, and then we will submit it like we used to do when we had block grants. I think that's all I'm going to say, unless there are questions of it. It's probably, it sounds anticlimactic if I've built it up because it's not path breaking, but it is something that could make the process of accessing these project development funds a little bit simpler than it was in the past. Are there any questions about it? I see Lauren's hand.
Hey, Dean, just to confirm, if we want to access these funds, we just have to like send you an email and say we want to access those funds, and then you'll send us some more information about how to apply.
So on the, not exactly, there is a link on the website for the ongoing solicitation for project development funds. So that's the link that you would follow to get you to the online form. That's the one people would use today. And there very well might be someone who wants to just use a watershed ID number that they already have. But if they don't want to, they can use this one. But it's that link that's on the website for the ongoing project development that you use to begin the process. You fill out the form. I get a ding in my email that says someone has completed the form, and we take it from there.
Okay, and then invoicing would work similar to any other project. You would just track your hours and expenses and.
Well, we will issue a task award like we do normally. It's just that the process of getting to the point of us offering you a task award is much quicker.
Okay.
But the invoicing would be the same as it is under the current system.
Awesome. Thanks.
So Dean, I just want to point out that I had submitted an expedited form. So I got the confirmation, but I haven't heard anything else.
Yes. But we were.
Different
Yes.
project.
Yes, we
went
have
back and forth the initial one, but then I submitted the second one.
Yeah. And I think I had ended up changing that slide. So yes, you are the one. Lindsay is the one who I had implied was in the wings and is not in the wings. She's on stage.
And it's super simple. Literally a form. It's great.
So if we can keep rolling and maybe finish early, I was going to give a little bit more information concerning O&M. Have answered questions and meetings with some folks, and so this is information that's starting to be shared. I apologize for this dense slide, but I'm going to go through it slowly because what it covers is fairly important, and I wanted people to have the opportunity to ask questions of me, either in this meeting or as a part of a follow-up. So we have provided funding. The WIC has authorized and the Clean Water Service Provider has contracted substantial amounts of funds for projects. When projects are implemented, they are they're also granted funds for operations and maintenance. And we have been working for quite a while to sort out the details of how that would work. Nora has conducted a survey throughout both basins, and there's information in the meeting packet showing the results of that. But we found that some organizations, many organizations, are interested in performing some O&M activities, at least for their projects. We have to follow the steps to allow that to happen. So the Regional Planning Commission, as the Clean Water Service Provider, wants those partner organizations that have a project that's been implemented or that they will implement to have the first option. We want you to be able to consider or raising your hand to perform operations and maintenance. So going forward, the next time somebody fills out an application online for funding, there's going to be a question that's new, and it's going to ask you, are you interested in doing the O&M for this project? And basically, because we are adding that question to the form, it's going to make it possible for that organization, if it gets the project implemented using the QUISP funds, to do the O&M. That's going to mean that around the same time that we are preparing a task award for your implementation project, we will also be developing some kind of agreement, a separate agreement for O&M activities. So it's going to mean that if you want to do O&M and you're doing a project, you will be able to do it. But if you're not interested in, then that's going to tell the QUISP, we have to find someone else who's going to do the O&M activities. I'm going to just stop and put a period with that. Now, what's important for people to understand, and it's not ideal, is that for everything up to today, we're going to have to ask for 3 bids. I wish it wasn't the case, but we're going to have to ask for 3 proposals. That doesn't mean that we have to have 3 proposals, but we will be asking for 3 proposals from 3 different entities, at least 3 entities. What would they charge to perform the operation and maintenance for a project? That's going to be the way for a partner or anybody. It's going to be the way for those 3 parties to say how much they would charge for what the task that they would perform to carry out the what's needed for the project. We're gonna also be really focusing on collecting the data about what it actually costs to do the O&M, because right now we know very, very well that's incredibly difficult to try to estimate the costs of operations and maintenance. So what it's going to mean is that there's going to probably be some back and forth developing the budget that's going to be included in the agreement that is signed that says, okay, for the next year or 2 or 3, this is how you will be compensated. And I see, Lauren, your hand is up, so I'll just address the question.
I guess I'm just curious, if there's like competitive bids for it, does that mean that the cost can be lump sum from folks like us, or does it have to be actual reimbursement based? Because I think that would make us, I think that if we're competing against for-profit entities, I just want to toss that out there, that could be a issue.
So I think I hear you saying, would the solicitation ask for someone? So when we say give us a cost proposal for the work to perform O&M on this project, I don't believe we're likely to say just give us lump sum. I think we're likely to ask, and we haven't done that solicitation, and that's something that we're working on now. What exactly would that solicitation say? But we're going to want to have an understanding beyond what the lump sum is. Does that help? Does that help answer your question?
I guess I'll stay tuned to see how it all comes together, but I will be curious to see if whoever gets chosen for O&M, if the contract is written as reimbursement, even if it's a for-profit entity, or if it's written as, yep, you agreed to this amount of money and you're going to pay that.
Okay, a not to exceed. Okay, or something like that. Yeah, okay. So I think I'm hearing you. So I think part of the reason that this is on the agenda is to hear from all of you as members of the council and a brain trust for these kinds of things, to suggest ideas, share thoughts on how it, from your perspective, it should be set up. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that if it's to the private sector, maybe it would be good to be, it's a set price, not to be something that could grow and grow and grow. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think what I'm trying to say, and I don't know if it's a good thing to say, but I think for planning purposes, for something like O&M that's in theory 10 years long of an agreement,
the O&M, I'm sorry, just to interject. The O&M agreement is, yes, that's the life of the project. I don't imagine that we would be signing someone up for 10 years. And in fact, I would argue against it strongly, that the agreement to perform O&M services is for that long. I'm imagining it would be something more like, give us a cost proposal for what would you charge for 1 year, and then also give us some variations for if it was extended to a 2nd year and if it was extended to a 3rd. I would not recommend that an agreement would be for the full 10 years, because we don't want to make a commitment that we're locked into something that would be, if they're not performing well, or we would want the opportunity to revisit. Does that help? It's not, I do not foresee us offering the agreement for the full life of the project right up front, because we're still trying to learn so much about how this is all going to work. I mean, if we were to put into the agreement one kind of scheme for payment and we realize that's a really bad scheme, we wouldn't want to be stuck with it.
Okay. Okay, so say it's for a year. I think what I would advocate for is if people submit what the price they think they can do it for, and if that is what gets accepted by the QUISP, that is the amount that gets paid, regardless of how efficiently the group or inefficiently the group can do the work.
As part of so if I'm following, so as part of an application, you're estimating what you think it would cost per year to implement it. You think that essentially when the motion is made to approve the implementation project, that a lot of weight is being given to that estimate of O&M costs.
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful to understand. Because my sense is that people haven't always felt like that's a number they can give with great confidence. We're asking for it because we want some idea, a point of reference, but I haven't felt like everybody feels like that's a meaningful number. But
But I think if we're competing against private sector folks, I think we need to treat it like we're private sector folks. If we're not treating it like private sector, if it's, I guess, for the competitive piece that you're saying is happening for any project that's already been installed.
So yeah, so like I said, I mean, the unfortunate thing I have to communicate is that I can't say that we are retroactively applying this. If you did the project, you automatically get right of first refusal. Yeah. So going forward, any entity that wants to will have that opportunity as long as the costs are like not unreasonable, then they would be first in line. So,
Okay.
I mean, we may be talking about a problem that is of limited duration because it's just those that have been subject to implementation thus far. And that's not a big number.
Right. I guess that is what I'm most referring to, is for the ones that are going to be competitively procured. Just having that be super clear that like the price you offer is the price you're going to get paid.
Got it. Okay. So I'm hearing a vote in favor of, hey, if it's going to be competitively procured, it should be come up with an estimate. That's the estimate. It's a not to exceed. And that's, and I mean, I think some people might say that that could be a harder approach for some partner organizations to deal with. It sounds like you would not, but some might feel like, hey, it's just too much that's unknown to make that kind of estimate. But I'm hearing you. I believe I'm hearing you, and then I'm understanding. And life will be simpler going forward. It's just that I have to explain and inform folks who've had projects funded for implementation now that we are going to have to solicit at least 3. And that's just, yeah, that's just the way that it is.
Just on that piece, like I have a tree planting that this applies to, everyone. I have 2 tree plantings this applies to, which is totally fine. But I guess like we were planning to go out next week to go weed whack. So there's a timing piece here that I just want to make super clear that like waiting, I don't know how long this process needs to take, but that could be an issue.
It's one of the things that's at the top of my list. I understand. Yeah. Yeah, and I realize, folks, for some of you, the discussion of O&M is maybe not central because it isn't for everybody, but it's a part of the work that we're doing that hasn't received the attention that it's going to require us to give it as time goes by. So anyway, my apologies for dragging you through.
Sorry, one more thing. Just to confirm, so NRPC is going to be the verifier, but the O&M performer will be somebody else, most likely.
So NRPC sought the ability to be the verifier because we had a pressing need with a deadline for a project in another basin. So your projects implemented this year will not have to be verified until next year, within 12 months. So between now and then, I'm not going to predict that NRPC would be the verifier, but it's a possibility. we have time between now and then to sort out the verifier issue. What's more important, now that we've already done the verification for that one project that we had to, that's just one thing off our plate. The more pressing matter is doing the solicitation for the projects that have just been implemented that are going to need O&M. Totally get that.
Okay. Thank you. That makes sense.
That's part of the reason why I'm dragging everybody through this at this meeting, so that we can start to get people aware of it and the complexities behind it, so that it just doesn't seem like it's come from nowhere.
I will also be really interested in, at some point, once we do have some more examples, what a reasonable cost range will end up looking like. I know it's not something you have now, and so I'm just poking at this point, but I will be curious to see kind of where those numbers come from and how we get there.
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to be a lot of collecting data. I think I've heard people at DEC who are in the thick of O&M saying that they're trying to see whether or not there's information that they can collect from other places that might be relevant to Vermont. But there are so many factors. There are geographic factors, there are tariff factors, there are COVID factors. I mean, there are all kinds of things that are coming into play with trying to figure out what it's going to cost to do O&M.
And then I know you and I have beaten this to a death at this point, but I will say specifically for tree maintenance, it will very much change if it all needs to be hand done as opposed to herbicide spraying, if that's a change in expectations.
Right. And just so people understand what we're talking about, there's a policy essentially, and is Karen on still? No. There's a policy that we're contending with that DEC has promoted, that essentially that that herbicides are not used as part of things, as part of projects. So, I mean, I can appreciate the desire, but sometimes it just seems to make sense that judicious use of herbicides is going to make the project viable, where if they weren't used, it's not. So we're trying to get clarification, or essentially we're trying to get a change in policy, because right now their position is, as expressed in the funding policy, that herbicides aren't to be used. Okay,
I
well,
have a
here
quick question about that. Is that including like initial implementation? You can't spray before you plant, or is that just on O&M?
That's one of the two prongs.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's one of two prongs.
Thanks. That sounds really problematic.
Yeah. Yeah. Stuff just going on behind the scenes. Okay, so the packet did have a copy of the survey, so if you wanted to see just where people's interests lie, you can do that. There are differences between partners and contractors. If something is a partner, I'm sorry, if something is a for-profit entity, it's generally speaking not going to be a partner. And like I said, we are going towards the direction that we're heading in is that the partner organizations would, as the sponsors of the application, would be the ones that would have the ability to opt in for O&M. In terms of updates and announcements, if I can just go very quickly, that's in a folder, I believe, to be signed. I haven't seen it signed yet, but it will be something I distribute when it is. Nora, I believe, has given a presentation on the work she's doing on public communications. Nora, do you want to give a quick update on how that's proceeding? The public communications documents and things that are happening at the state level?
Yeah, I can give a quick update. We've created a couple of flyers that I think will be shared with you pretty soon, as well as some templates for other QUISPs to use. And then the main thing that at least I'm working on right now is compiling a list of projects to highlight in a story map or an interactive web map of just different projects that have good educational value. So if anyone knows of any projects that would be worth highlighting from your experience or could help me look in the right direction, particularly buffer plantings, row projects, and stormwater projects, because there's been so many. If you have any that come to mind that were particularly successful or interesting, especially on private land, that would be great. But that's my update for now. So I'm sure keep an eye out for some materials and eventually a website landing page as well with general clean water funding information.
Thanks, Nora. The last bullet I have on the slide here has to do with something called forest road assessment. This is a type of project that we're going to be hearing more about. There's been a long lead up to where we are today. The lead up is essentially involved the creation of an assessment tool, an app. But basically, there's a new category of projects that can be the focus of water quality funds. So think of it as a road in the forest, and that road was previously used to do forestry activities, but it hasn't been used in 3 or more years, and it's got erosion problems. Oh, and it's not a recreational trail. And there are miles and miles of this kind of road in the mountains. There's a significant enough phosphorus reduction that could be accomplished if we do something about those, that we're directing funds to those. And I know that there are some folks, some organizations that are part of this meeting that have been part of the training. I just wanted people to know that, yep, this is a project type we may be hearing more about. And if anybody hears about it but doesn't really know what it's about, let me know. And you want to learn more, let me know. It is going to be an exception to the rule. The rule being we can't give you money to do a road inventory using clean water funds. What I'm told is that this will be an exception to that rule. So someone could say, I know a large forested property. Let's just say it's like the one that this Streamwood Addition project that the group approved earlier, that let's say that there were a network of old logging roads there. Someone could decide they would do an assessment of those former logging roads, and then they would come up with a proposed series of improvements, and then they would come in with an application, and then they would go back, and then they would assess, and we would determine how much phosphorus reduction. A road going from its worst state to the acceptable state would provide something like 2 kilograms plus for every 300 feet. So it's not an insignificant amount of phosphorus reduction if we were to do those types of projects. But anyway, that's all I will say about that since it's 1 o'clock. Next meeting of this group is August 6th. It's your annual meeting. It'll be a meeting that's in person. It'll be hybrid. We're intending to pursue the same location as we've used the past couple of years, which is the Emergency Services Building in Enosburg. I'll be talking with Lindsay and Kent and anybody else if you're interested in having some kind of speaker. The next funding rounds will open up in August with the deadline in September.
Awesome. Thanks, Dean. I was thinking about the fact that we have an annual meeting in person. Happy if it can happen in Enosburg again. That'd be great. And please do let us know if there's anyone you'd like us to pursue as a speaker. Always like to have multiple thoughts on that. Any last comments before we wrap up 1 minute late? Okay. Motion to close the meeting. Oh, Lauren suggests Stacy. That's a great suggestion always. Can we keep her up here for a week to just pick her brain? Kent?
Yeah, I'm gonna make a plug for a week from Saturday, the 14th, for you cyclers in the crowd to come on over to North Hero for Saturday morning for our bike for the lake. I know you haven't had much dry weather to practice your bicycle, your skills, but it's coming right up, and you don't have to go the whole 100 miles. We'll forgive you if you only pull off 30.
Are you promising us a weekend without rain that weekend?
I know better than that. Good try.
Heidi suggests maybe a landowner of a successful project would be a good speaker to come as well. So I like that idea. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn today's meeting at 1:02 p.m.? There's making a motion.
I move we adjourn.
There's a second. Everybody. Oh yeah, Lauren says, what about a field visit to the dam removal in progress? That's a cool idea. All right, I'm gonna make sure I note these ideas, although I'm sure that Nora will capture them in the minutes. So
very cool.
Super. Thanks, guys. I'm assuming we're all in favor. Anyone opposed to ending the meeting at 1:02 p.m.? All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good rest of the day. Think dry
care.
thoughts for weekends.